leave faint, unintelligible whispers in the background.
Look at your hands for a moment. Really look at them. Now ask yourself, are these just mechanical assemblies of tissue and bone, operating on electrical impulses? Or is there something more? Something that science can't quite capture in its equations and diagrams? We live in an age where we can explain everything, except what it means to be alive. Modern science has given us a world of perfectly mapped systems, where consciousness is reduced to neural networks, and human experience becomes nothing more than data points in an endless stream of measurable phenomena. We've gained tremendous knowledge, but in the process, we've lost something essential: our sense of being alive. Consider this: we can map every neuron in the brain, sequence our entire genome, and predict behavior patterns with algorithms, yet rates of loneliness, anxiety, and existential dread have never been higher. As Martin Heidegger noted, the more efficiently the world is conquered by technology, the more the objects of its conquest conceal their being. We've built a perfect machine, only to find ourselves trapped inside it. Your smartphone can connect you to anyone on the planet, but when was the last time you felt truly connected to yourself? We scroll through carefully curated images of mountain peaks bathed in golden light, exotic beach vacations, and meticulously staged life achievements, searching for meaning in other people's highlight reels while our own lived experience grows increasingly distant. We've optimized everything: our work, our relationships, even our leisure time. Byung-Chul Han calls this the transparency paradox. The more we optimize for productivity, the less we experience genuine engagement. We've become so good at measuring life that we've forgotten how to live it. Remember being a child, before anyone told you how things really work? That sense of wonder and mystery wasn't ignorance. It was a more direct way of experiencing reality. As Gaston Bachelard writes, the child knows a natural wonder that rational knowledge only diminishes. We've traded this direct experience for explanations, diagrams, and theories. But can a theory ever capture what it feels like to be alive? We now live in two worlds simultaneously, the physical and the digital. But as philosopher Sherry Turkle observes, we're getting used to a new way of being alone together. Our digital avatars grow more polished while our authentic selves fade into the background, like old photographs losing their color. Every moment of silence is now an opportunity for content consumption. Every pause becomes a chance to check notifications. As Nicholas Carr puts it, what the net seems to be doing is chipping away at my capacity for concentration and contemplation. We've become so afraid of empty spaces that we've filled every moment with noise. We quantify everything: our steps, our sleep, our social connections, our productivity. Even our emotions are reduced to data points on mood tracking apps. Albert Camus saw this coming when he wrote, "Everything is measured by the number of hours, of kilometers, of calories, of records. But can you measure the weight of a memory? The depth of a feeling?" We've become experts at understanding life from the outside. We can explain the biochemistry of depression, the sociology of relationships, the psychology of happiness. But as Ezo Ren Kierkegaard warned, there are two ways to be fooled. One is to believe what isn't true. The other is to refuse to believe what is true. And what's true is that no amount of external knowledge can substitute for lived experience. Strip away the layers of abstraction, the theories, the metrics, the explanations, and what remains? A beating heart, breathing lungs, the raw sensation of being alive. These aren't just biological processes, they're the foundation of our existence. Yet we treat them as background noise to be optimized or ignored. Our morning ritual is no longer watching the sunrise, it's checking our phones. Our evening meditation isn't gazing at the stars, it's scrolling through feeds. We don't mark the seasons by changes in the air, but by updates to our apps. As Marshall McLuhan predicted, we shape our tools, and thereafter our tools shape us. When was the last time you were fully present, not planning, not remembering, not documenting, just being? Modern life has turned presence into a luxury product. We pay for meditation apps to remind us to breathe, while our ancestors simply breathed. We attend mindfulness seminars to learn what our grandparents never forgot. But here's the paradox that might save us: the very intensity of our disconnection might be forcing us to confront what we've lost. As Nietzsche said, one should hear a little music, read a little poetry, and see a fine picture every day in order that worldly cares may not obliterate the sense of the beautiful doll. This isn't about rejecting technology or science, it's about remembering that explanation isn't experience. Understanding how a sunset works doesn't make it less beautiful. Knowing the chemistry of love doesn't make it less real. Perhaps we need both the knowledge to understand and the wisdom to experience. So where do we begin? How do we bridge the gap between knowing and being? The answer might lie in something both ancient and revolutionary, the direct experience of our own existence. But first, we need to understand exactly what we're trying to recover. We've built a world of unprecedented control. Smart homes, predictive algorithms, optimization systems, all promising to make life perfectly manageable. Yet, as philosopher Zygmunt Bauman notes, the more we seek control, the more powerless we feel. Every new system we create to manage life seems to leave us feeling less in touch with life itself. Our modern world runs on prediction, weather forecasts, market trends, behavioral analytics. We're obsessed with knowing what comes next. But as Alan Watts observed, a desire for security and the feeling of insecurity are the same thing. The more desperately we try to predict and control our future, the more anxious we become about what we can't control. Look at how we've optimized our daily lives. Meal prep Sundays, productivity apps, life hacks, everything streamlined, everything efficient. But to what end? As philosopher Byung-Chul Han writes, the violence of positivity and optimization doesn't liberate, it exhausts. We're becoming perfectly efficient machines at the cost of our humanity. We've built endless systems to protect ourselves from uncertainty. Insurance policies against every conceivable risk, backup plans for our backup plans, safety nets beneath safety nets. Yet, as Nassim Taleb points out, the more we try to avoid risk, the more fragile we become. Our pursuit of absolute safety has left us more vulnerable than ever. We're drowning in information. Every decision comes with infinite data points, endless research, countless opinions. Should you eat that apple? Well, first consider its glycemic index, pesticide content, carbon footprint, and farming practices. As Milan Kundera wrote, the greater the weight of information, the more difficult the journey becomes. 5-year plans, 10-year goals, life strategies, and career trajectories. We've turned our existence into a project to be managed. But as John Lennon said, and yes, it's become cliché precisely because it's so true, life is what happens while you're busy making other plans. We're so focused on mapping the journey that we're missing the landscape. Social media hasn't just given us fear of missing out. It's given us something far more insidious, fear of being ordinary. Every moment must be extraordinary. Every experience must be Instagram worthy. Every day must be lived to its full potential. As Carl Jung warned, the perfect life is a myth that poisons all actual living. We've turned productivity into a religion. Every minute must be optimized. Every action must have purpose. Every moment must contribute to some greater goal. David Foster Wallace saw this coming. The really important kind of freedom involves attention and awareness and discipline and effort and being able truly to care about other people and to sacrifice for them over and over in myriad petty little unsexy ways every day. Our devices promise freedom but deliver dependence. They offer connection but create isolation. They pledge efficiency but generate endless busy work. Neil Postman wasn't just prescient, he was prophetic when he wrote, "Technology giveth and technology taketh away, and not always in equal measure." We've become addicted to achievement. Each accomplishment must be followed by a greater one. Each success must lead to another. It's what Buddhist teacher Chögyam Trungpa called spiritual materialism. But now it's not just spiritual, it's existential. We're trying to achieve our way out of the fundamental uncertainty of being alive. We've engineered a world of unprecedented comfort. Climate-controlled environments, on-demand everything, friction-free experiences. But as Nassim Nicholas Taleb observes, comfort is the road to waste and dependency. The more comfortable we become, the less capable we are of handling discomfort. And real life is inherently uncomfortable. Never in human history have we had so many choices. What to watch, what to eat, what to eat, who to become. Barry Schwartz called it the paradox of choice. But it's more than a paradox, it's a prison. Each choice carries the weight of all the choices we're not making. Each decision becomes an exercise in mourning the infinite possibilities we're letting go. We've become compulsive documentarians of our own lives. Every moment must be captured, every experience recorded, every thought shared. Susan Sontag warned us, today everything exists to end in a photograph. But when we're busy recording life, who's actually living it? The camera has become both lens and barrier. We see everything through it, but it keeps us at a safe distance from real experience. Even authenticity has become a commodity. Be yourself has become a marketing slogan. Live your truth is a brand strategy. As Jean Baudrillard predicted, when the real is no longer what it used to be, nostalgia assumes its full meaning. We're so desperate for something real that we'll buy artificial authenticity, not seeing the absurdity in that very transaction. We're facing what philosopher Charles Taylor calls the malaise of modernity. We have everything we need to survive, but nothing we need to truly live. Material abundance paired with spiritual poverty, infinite information but finite wisdom. As Viktor Frankl noted, ever more people today have the means to live but no meaning to live for. Virtual reality, digital worlds, metaverses. We're building ever more elaborate escapes from the very reality we need to confront. But as philosopher Albert Borgman points out, the irony of the technological conjuring of virtual realities is that it makes the actual world seem unreal. The more perfect our simulations become, the more imperfect reality appears. We treat time like a resource to be managed, controlled, optimized. But time isn't a thing. It's the medium of our existence. Martin Heidegger understood this when he wrote, "Time is not a thing, thus nothing which is, and yet it remains constant in its passing away without being something temporal like the beings in time." We've turned time into a commodity and lost our relationship with eternity. Here's the ultimate irony: our systems of control are breaking down precisely because they're too effective. Perfect prediction creates perfect fragility. Complete comfort creates complete vulnerability. Total control creates total chaos. As complexity theorist Stuart Kauffman observed, the very success of reductionism in physics has perhaps blinded us to the radically emergent world we actually live in. But there's hope in this breakdown. The cracks in our systems of control are letting the light in. Through these fissures, we might glimpse something we've forgotten, a way of being that doesn't require constant management, optimization, or control. Let's explore what that might look like. In a culture obsessed with intellect and abstraction, we've neglected one of the most powerful forms of knowledge, of the body's wisdom. We tend to treat the mind as the ultimate guide and the body as its vehicle, as if one were the master and the other simply a tool. Yet philosopher Maurice Merleau-Ponty reminds us that consciousness is not confined to the brain, it exists through and with the body. There is a kind of knowing that can't be put into words, a feeling that is felt and understood directly in our bones. This embodied knowing offers something intellectual knowledge cannot, an immediate and grounded connection to reality. When we tune into our bodies, we counteract the numbness that digital life instills. Consider something as simple as mindful movement, or even just sitting in silence with our sensations. This isn't New Age escapism, it's a return to a long-lost skill. We're so accustomed to outsourcing our feelings to screens that we've forgotten how to recognize and trust the signals our bodies send. Rediscovering our bodily awareness is a way of re-entering the world, of anchoring ourselves in a reality we can actually feel. In our hyper-connected world, our senses are overwhelmed but paradoxically dulled. We're inundated with sound, bombarded by images, and overstimulated by artificial lights. But are we truly experiencing any of it? Our five senses, touch, taste, smell, sight, and hearing, are our natural gateways to presence. But modern life numbs these pathways with layers of artificial experience. Think of the last time you genuinely tasted your food, felt the texture of fabric against your skin, or savored a scent without distraction. If we're constantly multitasking, constantly scrolling, how can we possibly be fully present in any one sensation? Simple practices of sensory reconnection, such as savoring a meal without screens, walking barefoot in nature, or taking moments to tune into ambient sounds, can help us reclaim our awareness of the physical world. These practices aren't about denying modern conveniences but about reconnecting with the grounding presence of our senses. When we relearn the art of sensation, we reclaim our ability to be here now without needing an app, a camera, or a notification to tell us what we're feeling. In rediscovering sensation, we rediscover reality. In a world increasingly obsessed with mindfulness, one might think we'd already mastered the art of presence. But the commercialization of mindfulness has turned it into a product, a performance, rather than a genuine state of being. We're sold meditation apps, guided practices, and Instagrammable, mindful moments as if true presence were just another achievement to be unlocked. But what does it mean to actually be present? Beyond the marketable version of mindfulness, authentic presence is not a product but a practice, and it's messy, uncomfortable, and often difficult. It means engaging with the moment as it is, not as we'd like it to be or as we're told it should be. It's about paying attention to life's subtleties, noticing our immediate surroundings, and recognizing our emotions in real time. Imagine pausing, for example, in the middle of a chaotic day to simply breathe, to look around, and to acknowledge the space you're in. Such moments, uncurated and unshared, remind us that real presence cannot be packaged. It's an experience only we can create, and it doesn't need to be pretty or perfect. It just needs to be real. We live in an era of unprecedented information, where knowledge is easily accessible and available in abundance. But information isn't the same as wisdom. Philosopher Martin Heidegger warns that information, when treated as a standalone, becomes a stockpile, rather than something transformative. Knowledge becomes wisdom only when it's lived, embodied, and integrated into our direct experience. We can read endlessly about concepts like compassion, but unless we practice compassion in real life, it remains hollow. The distinction between knowledge and wisdom is crucial, especially in a culture that prizes intellect over insight. Knowledge tells us the facts, the statistics, the data points, but wisdom gives us perspective. It teaches us how to understand and apply what we know in a meaningful way. In this digital age, it's all too easy to confuse being informed with being wise. True wisdom asks that we go beyond mere consumption of information and engage with life in a way that is thoughtful, intentional, and experiential. We live in a world that prizes certainty. We're encouraged to have answers, to make decisions quickly, and to forge ahead with confidence. But true wisdom often resides in our ability to embrace uncertainty. Philosopher Karl Jaspers called it philosophical faith, a willingness to accept the unknown as a necessary and enriching part of existence. In a culture that values control and predictability, this idea feels almost radical. But perhaps rather than filling every gap with answers, we can find comfort in the mysteries we don't yet understand. Uncertainty is a path to authenticity, a reminder that life is inherently unpredictable and that we don't need to know everything. It's in these spaces of not knowing that we are often most alive, most present, and most open to genuine experience. Embracing uncertainty doesn't mean we abandon reason or critical thinking. It means we accept that life's richness not in its predictability but in its ever-present potential for surprise. In these uncertain spaces, we can discover a way of being that's both humble and deeply connected to the reality around us. It's easy to reduce the conversation about digital detox to an oversimplified refrain: technology is bad, avoid screens, go outside. But this misses the deeper, more nuanced challenge. Our task is not to demonize technology but to transform our relationship with it. Technology isn't inherently harmful, it's our unchecked, compulsive use that creates the problem. Philosopher Andy Clark's idea of the extended mind shows us that our tools, when integrated thoughtfully, can expand our capacities, helping us remember, think, and connect more fully. But the question remains: how much are these tools enhancing us, and how much are they diminishing us? Creating healthy boundaries with technology is less about quitting and more about cultivating awareness. It means knowing when to reach for your phone and when to leave it behind, when to use an app to enhance experience, and when it would only detract. Intelligent use is selective use. It's making conscious choices about when and how to engage, rather than mindlessly scrolling and responding to every ping. Just as a healthy relationship with food involves mindful eating, a healthy relationship with technology involves mindful connection. Boundaries are not limitations. They are freedoms, allowing us to reclaim control over our lives and focus our attention on what truly matters. Modern life has distanced us from the natural rhythms that once anchored human existence. We've replaced day and night with a 24/7 blur, where time itself feels like a resource we must endlessly optimize. Yet, without these rhythms, dawn to dusk, work to rest, we lose a sense of organic flow. Natural cycles don't just structure our lives. They create a cadence, a pacing that nurtures our physical and mental well-being. Living in perpetual motion, detached from any rhythm, is like trying to dance without music. Consider how ancient cultures respected the sun's rise and fall, and how agricultural societies lived by the seasons. These rhythms were not just external, they were internal, shaping daily life, sleep, work, and even thought. We may no longer be farmers, but we still need that balance of effort and ease, of activity and stillness. Think of how invigorating it feels to watch a sunset, or wake up naturally with the light. Our bodies recognize these patterns intuitively, even if we've consciously forgotten them. Reconnecting with natural rhythms is less about escaping modern life and more about restoring an inner harmony, a sense of belonging to something larger than ourselves. Our culture's obsession with productivity has twisted work into a constant race against time. We're bombarded with hacks, tips, and strategies to do more, faster, as if our value is measured solely by our output. But this focus on perpetual productivity disconnects us from a deeper purpose. To borrow a line from author Wendell Berry, the more we exploit nature, the more we lose our connection to it. In much the same way, the more we exploit our time, the more we lose touch with the moments that give it meaning. Imagine shifting from a productivity mindset to a purpose mindset. Instead of asking, "How much can I get done today?" we ask, "What's worth my time?" In place of endless to-do lists, we cultivate intentional to-do lists, focusing on what truly enriches our lives rather than what simply keeps us busy. Productivity without purpose is hollow, a frenzy that leaves us exhausted rather than fulfilled. True purpose is quieter, grounded, not in constant action but in meaningful engagement. The goal isn't to be the busiest, but to be fully present in what we're doing, to give our attention to the things that truly resonate. In the midst of digital screens and urban sprawl, we've lost touch with the commons. The shared spaces of nature, parks, and public areas that once brought us together and grounded us in a shared reality. Philosopher Peter Sloterdijk speaks to the importance of shared practices, activities that help us reconnect to the world and each other. When we step into a park, breathe fresh air, or sit beneath a tree, we're doing more than taking a break. We're participating in a ritual of shared human experience. Public spaces, much like natural settings, serve as a collective reminder of our common humanity. They don't belong to anyone individually but to everyone collectively. They offer a respite from the private, curated spaces we each control, creating instead an open ground where life unfolds unpredictably. In these shared spaces we might encounter perspectives and experiences different from our own, and in doing so, we remember our connection to others and to the earth itself. Reclaiming these commons isn't just about preserving green spaces, it's about preserving the possibility of real, unscripted interaction in a world where everything feels increasingly curated and controlled. In a hyper-connected world, solitude has become an endangered state. Every spare moment is filled with connection, entertainment, or distraction. Philosopher Søren Kierkegaard called solitude the school of genius, a time when we confront ourselves and learn who we are apart from external influences. Without solitude we lose the opportunity for self-reflection, for internal dialogue, and ultimately for self-knowledge. How can we know ourselves if we're never alone with our thoughts? Solitude is not about loneliness, it's about cultivating a relationship with oneself. It's a space to listen to our inner voices, free from the influence of constant input. Solitude allows for a quiet strength, a grounding that helps us approach connection with others from a place of fullness rather than emptiness. In a culture that treats solitude as a deficiency to be fixed, reclaiming it is an act of rebellion, a way of asserting that we are enough as we are, without constant validation. In solitude, we find clarity, in clarity, presence. We stand at a crossroads where rejecting technology outright isn't a practical option, but blindly embracing it comes at great personal and cultural cost. The task ahead is to integrate technology without letting it define us, to use it as a tool rather than allowing ourselves to be reshaped by it. Philosopher Andy Clark's notion of the extended mind suggests that our tools can extend our mental faculties, but only if we wield them consciously. Are we in charge of our tools, or have they begun to dictate the rhythms of our lives? Imagine a future where we develop technology that actually encourages embodiment and groundedness, rather than being designed to addict. These tools could be crafted to support our deeper goals, helping us spend less time in virtual realms and more time present in the real world. Picture an app that, instead of reminding you of your daily screen time, reminds you to spend time in nature or with loved ones. We don't need to choose between a digital life and a meaningful life. Rather, we need to bring purpose and intention into the digital spaces we inhabit. Just as we need to integrate technology thoughtfully, we must reclaim our sense of rhythm in a world dominated by constant access and demands. Our modern society celebrates productivity at the expense of pacing, pushing us to accomplish more with less rest, and leaving little room for life's natural ebb and flow. Martha Nussbaum reminds us that emotions, too, have rhythms, that they are essential to our intelligence and empathy. When we honor these rhythms, we allow ourselves the time and space to feel deeply and think clearly. Reclaiming our rhythms doesn't mean dropping out of the modern world. It means choosing moments of slowness and reflection amidst the rush. It means reintroducing pauses, creating boundaries between work and rest, and honoring the body's natural need for renewal. Imagine setting aside time each day that isn't for anything, a time to simply be, to allow thoughts to settle, emotions to surface, and creativity to flourish. This rhythm, punctuated by rest as well as action, is not a luxury but a necessity if we are to thrive in a world that never stops. In our hyper-individualistic culture, we're often told that personal success is the ultimate measure of a life well lived. But collective wisdom, born from shared experience and diverse perspectives, offers an antidote to this isolating pursuit of individual achievement. Philosopher Peter Sloterdijk speaks to the power of shared practice, arguing that real community arises not from mere proximity but from shared actions, rituals, and goals. What if, instead of viewing each other as competitors, we saw ourselves as collaborators in the search for meaning and fulfillment? Communities that emphasize wisdom over wealth, connection over competition, and authenticity over image give us a chance to belong to something larger than ourselves. Imagine gatherings where people come together not to network, but to share ideas, discuss challenges, and offer support. These communities cultivate a wisdom that no individual can generate alone, a collective insight that keeps us grounded and connected. We're reminded that while we may walk our own paths, we do not walk alone. Efficiency has become a modern mantra, but at what cost? We save time, but often lose depth. We optimize, but forget to appreciate. Efficiency may increase our output, but it can strip away the richness of experience. Zen practitioners have long reminded us of the importance of being fully present, of engaging fully with the task at hand. When we lose presence in our pursuit of productivity, we sacrifice quality for quantity, moments for milestones. The challenge is to find a balance, a way to integrate efficiency with a commitment to presence. What would it look like to do our work, even the mundane tasks, with mindfulness? To pour a cup of coffee not as a rushed necessity but as a moment of presence? To write an email or attend a meeting with genuine attention rather than divided focus? The goal is not to abandon efficiency but to pair it with a conscious, deliberate presence, recognizing that life happens in the pauses as much as in the action. We live fragmented lives, divided between roles, responsibilities, and identities. The call for integration is a call to reclaim wholeness, to bring together the many parts of ourselves into a cohesive, meaningful whole. Philosopher Maurice Merleau-Ponty reminds us of the importance of embodiment, of being present in our bodies, which are the root of our experience and understanding. Without this wholeness, we risk becoming mere shadows of ourselves, constantly reacting rather than truly living. To integrate is to honor every part of ourselves, the thinker, the doer, the feeler, and the dreamer. It's about letting go of the need to compartmentalize and allowing ourselves to be fully human in all of our complexity. Imagine a life where we don't need to hide parts of ourselves or split our identities, where we show up fully as we are, in every interaction, without fear or pretense. This is the new integration, not the rejection of modern life, but the embracing of it with an authenticity that connects mind, body, and spirit. In a world so often defined by systems, structures, and external forces, it's easy to feel powerless. Yet, the path forward begins with individual responsibility, with each of us making choices that reflect our values and aspirations. Viktor Frankl, who endured the darkest of human experiences, insisted that life's meaning is created through the choices we make, even when circumstances seem beyond our control. Each choice we make, to be present, to seek meaning, to connect, plants a seed for a different future. It's tempting to wait for the world to change, to hope that someone else will fix what's broken. But real change begins with small acts, with each of us taking steps toward a more authentic, mindful way of being. We become the examples, the proof that a different way of living is possible. Our individual actions ripple outward, inspiring others and slowly shifting the cultural tide. Change doesn't require perfection, it requires persistence, patience, and courage. The call for change is urgent, but it's also important to recognize the limits of our control. Philosopher Lao Tzu taught that true wisdom lies in the balance of action and acceptance, knowing when to push forward and when to let go. We live in a world of complex systems, and some things are beyond our influence. Acceptance is not resignation, it's a clear-sighted recognition of reality. It's understanding that while we work toward change, we also need to find peace with the present. This balance allows us to act without losing ourselves in frustration or despair. It's the recognition that our work is ongoing, that each small step is meaningful even if the destination seems far off. We strive for betterment, not because we expect to see instant results, but because each action, each choice, is a commitment to a future we believe in. Acceptance gives us the patience to keep going, to stay grounded in a world that resists change, and to find satisfaction in the journey itself. Every ending is a beginning, and as we conclude this exploration, we stand at the threshold of a new way of being. The path forward is not a return to old ways but an embrace of something new, an integration of past wisdom with modern possibility. Imagine a world where technology enhances our humanity rather than detracts from it, where productivity is balanced by presence, and where individuals come together to create communities rooted in shared values. This new way of being isn't defined by rigid rules or dogmas. It's an openness to experience, a willingness to question assumptions, and an acceptance of uncertainty. We don't need all the answers to begin, we only need the courage to take the first steps, to explore, to experiment, and to embrace the wisdom that emerges along the way. It's an invitation to live fully, to connect deeply, and to create meaning in a world that often seems to lack it. As we conclude, remember that hope is not a passive state. It's a practice, a choice to look forward with optimism and purpose. The world may seem overwhelming, but each of us holds the power to shape our experience, to find meaning in our actions, and to contribute to a larger story. This journey isn't about perfection or having all the answers, it's about progress, about each of us playing a small but essential part in the unfolding human narrative. The path forward is a collective one, built on countless individual acts of courage, kindness, and authenticity. Together, we can create a culture that values depth over distraction, meaning over mindlessness, and connection over isolation. Let's move forward with a sense of purpose, grounded in the understanding that while we may never fully arrive, each step brings us closer to a way of being that is whole, human, and profoundly alive.